podcast, part of a series of the Roundtable discussions presented by the Interpreter Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation formed to support the Latter-day restoration of the gospel. It's taught by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to provide information to church members and others who might be interested in one topic or another that has a connection to the restoration, and also to defend the faith against claims of critics. If you would like more information about the Interpreter Foundation, go to mormoninterpreter.com. This is a Gospel Doctrine Sunday School lesson discussion or roundtable about Lesson 43, which is Take Upon You My Whole Armor. Joining me in this roundtable on the far left of your screen is Grant Gardner, and in the center you will see a bear representation, which is Craig Foster, joining us today. And I'm on the right of your screen. My name's Martin Tanner. And as far as background goes, as we start off the roundtable discussion today, Take Upon You My Whole Armor is a metaphor for being prepared for battle. And the specific topics that are mentioned here are loins girt with the truth. So truth is some kind of protection that's discussed here, and we'll get into some detail about how truth is a protection and how it might be used. Breastplate of righteousness, how righteousness is a successful use in the battle against evil and in our own lives. A shield of faith, helmet of salvation, and the Spirit of God through modern revelation. Those are the basic topics that we hit in this lesson. Before we started our roundtable today, as we were discussing the topics, Craig Foster had brought up the whole idea of battle, and that this is a military metaphor, and I thought this was a fantastic observation, and you had some great things to say. So why don't we start off there, Craig?
All right, thank you. And I'm sorry for once again being a bear. Camera troubles. Anyway, yeah, as I have read the scriptures, and of course we are very well aware of the fact that in the Old Testament, there's obviously a lot of battles, there's a lot of battle imagery, and people often talk about how the God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament are so different, when of course in reality we know that they're one and the same. But what is interesting is that when Jesus Christ came and he gave the good words, it was a gospel of love, and the overall message obviously is love. I mean, the love of our Father to send Jesus, His only begotten, to atone for our sacrifices, the love of Jesus Christ to be willing to atone for our sacrifices, and then the ultimate command to love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, love God and then love thy neighbor as thyself. And so there is the overarching theme of love throughout the New Testament, and yet you find this imagery, sprinkled here and there throughout the New Testament of battle imagery. And here, when it says to take on the whole armor of God, it seems to stand in contrast to the message of love, but that is a recurring theme, and then obviously throughout Christian history we've had examples where we've had this warlike theme. Now, obviously, we were talking about the fact that, well, yes, and we did have the Crusades, and a few other examples of that. But going, you kind of getting away from that and going back to the scriptures and to the messages, to the hymns. There is this theme, onward Christian soldiers. We love singing that. Martin, you mentioned we are all enlisted till the conflict is o'er, and there are other hymns that have this battle theme. And I think that the reason why there is this recurring theme is because while we are supposed to have love, love for one another, to love thy enemy, etc., and so forth, we are also very much involved in an ongoing battle, indeed a war, and it's a spiritual war, light versus darkness, good versus evil. And I think that if we take upon ourselves the name of Christ, then we are enlisted in his army. In other words, we are enlisted to do good and to fight against evil, whether that be as missionaries or just spreading the good word, the gospel of Jesus Christ, whatever it is, we are enlisted to truly be in our Lord's army and to take on ourselves the armor of God, and then to fight the enemy, which is Satan and the evil that he is spreading. So those are just a few thoughts there.
Appreciate that. One of the things that you mentioned is that this whole idea of battling evil. One of the most fascinating documents that's part of the Dead Sea Scrolls finds is something that was apparently very important to the Dead Sea Scrolls community, who incidentally called themselves the Latter-day Saints, meaning that they were in the saints in the last days before the coming of the Messiah. But their community has never been described with their own title, because, as some of the earliest translators said, that title has unfortunately been co-opted by a modern faith, referencing us. So the Dead Sea Scrolls community genuinely called themselves the Latter-day Saints, and one of the most fascinating parts of their literature was a book that was called The Battle of the Sons of Light with the Sons of Darkness. And their belief was that at the very end of time, that those who were the sons of light, those who followed God, would do battle with those who were professing and acting evil in the world, and they would vanquish them. And that's ultimately the New Testament theme that we see in the book of Revelation. Evil will be vanquished, good will be prevailing at the very end of time. And so this is a theme that does recur over and over again, and I really like your idea of bringing up the battle imagery.
Well, on that point, let me take it, because it kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about. Craig was talking about the fact that we've got battle imagery for while we are here on this earth, that we're in a battle with faith, to defend our faith from the forces that will work against us. And then you mentioned the fact that in the book of Revelation we're talking about the end time, so that there is a time when there will be war again to vanquish that. What I want to talk about goes the other direction. We actually call it the war in heaven, and that's the beginning of battle themes of conflict, of saying that there is this conflict between, and then we of course name the conflict as being between Satan and Christ. And I think what's really interesting is that there's some things that we can sort of pull out of those scriptures and learn about this process. And I'll preface it by saying that I'm going to give people my ideas, so that when somebody listens and they say, I totally disagree, that they're going to be welcome to do that, and it will bother anybody's salvation that they disagree with me. But here, go to Moses, for those who can pull it up. We're going to look at Moses chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. And I, the Lord God, spake unto Moses, saying, That Satan whom thou hast commanded in mine own in the name of mine only begotten is the same which was in the beginning, and he came before me, saying. So we're talking about Satan. He's been given the name right now of Satan the adversary. That's the meaning of this term. So he's the adversary at this point. But that's when we're discussing it with Moses, and Satan is already there. Probably, technically, he should be called Lucifer here, or the bringer of light, because this isn't the point yet where he becomes Satan, and that'll actually happen in verse 4. So, back to verse 1. Here's what he says. Behold, here I am, send me, I will be thy son, and I will redeem all mankind. And let me stop there for a second. So far, there is nothing that has been said that was wrong at all. You know, here I am, I will be thy son. It's the same thing that Christ is going to say. Here I am, I will be thy son. It's the same offer. I offer to be the Messiah, the Redeemer. I offer myself in that role. And what happens is what comes right after this offer that causes the issue. So we get two things. And Satan says, and I will redeem all mankind, that not one soul shall be lost, or that one soul shall not be lost, and surely I will do it, therefore, wherefore, give me thine honor. And those are the two things that are going to contrast. So in verse 2, but behold, my beloved son, which was my beloved and chosen from the beginning, said unto me, and look at the parallel again, you know, say, Father, thy will be done, thy glory, glory be thine forever. And so what happens is Christ, again, without saying it, says, you know, here I am, send me. We'll get that in another verse. But he specifically talks about this idea of the glory. And instead of saying the glory is mine, he's saying the glory is yours. Now think about what that means, because this mission, this saving mission of Christ, what did he end up with? You know, he ended up with all that the Father has. And there's plenty of glory there. Satan somehow missed where the true attribution was. So what they were looking for, not necessarily all that different. Satan had the character flaw, and then a problem. And then we get to the last, and it says in verses 3 and 4, because Satan rebelled against me and sought to destroy the agency of man which I, the Lord, had given him, and also that I should give him mine own power by the power of mine only begotten, I caused that he should be cast down, and he became Satan, yea, even the devil, the father of all lies. So, there's the process. And what we tend to do sometimes in the church, I think, is make a mistake about what Satan's plan was, because we say that Satan was going to force us all to be good. He doesn't say that. He never says that I'm going to force you to be good. And the Lord never says that there's force that's here. What happens is he destroys agency. And so to really understand that, we've got to go to some other place in the Scripture. And where we want to go is to Lehi in 2 Nephi chapter 2, verses 11 and 12. And this is where Lehi gets, unfortunately, almost as dense as Paul, where his language is kind of hard to figure out. But here's what he said. He said, for it must needs be that there is an opposition in all things. If not so, my firstborn in the wilderness, righteousness could not be brought to pass, neither wickedness, neither holiness nor misery, neither good nor bad. Wherefore all things must be a compound in one. And then I'll let it go from there, and you can read it at your leisure. But here's the important thing. What he talks about there is the fact that if there is no opposition, then there can't be any agency. And all you have to do to destroy agency is take away choice. Not that you force someone, but that you remove the ability to have a choice. And what Lehi does as an example of that is he says it's a compound in one. And I thought about that one forever, trying to figure out what in the world a compound in one was. And I'll give you my best guess. If somebody in a Sunday school meeting stood up and took 2 hymn books and put them in front of you and said, here are 2 brand new hymn books, You know that they look the same, they've got the same words, everything about them is the same. With the way we do things these days, these two things are absolutely identical. And then someone says to you, on pain of your life, choose the better. You can't do it because they're a compound in one. There's no way to make a choice because you don't have anything against which to judge so that you can make a choice. And what Satan was saying is, I'm going to remove the ability to have opposition. That very thing that makes life so hard for us, that opposition that creates problems, all of those things are also the thing that allows us to have the opposition so that we can choose. And to the degree that we actively choose the right, we will progress. And that's the process. You know, I think even if we make choices, you know, let's say we choose, you know, word of wisdom, we decide not to smoke and we get some health benefits for not smoking. If we're not members of the church, although we get the health benefit, we don't get the spiritual benefit because we haven't chosen it for that reason. And so it's those active choices that we make that will be really important to our spiritual development.
Well said. Well said. I'd like to pick up on one extra theme from Moses chapter 4 and sort of apply it to the whole armor of God concept here. And that is that in verse 1, it talks about Satan saying, if I do these things, give me thine honor. And if you go to Doctrine and Covenants section 29, verse 36, it has another really fascinating verse that deals with honor. It talks about honor being equated with power. Give me thine honor. Which is thy power? Which is the thing that makes you powerful? And I would submit that even Satan recognized that being honorable carries with it power. And that to the degree we, as members of the church, whether it's youth or adults, lose our honor through whatever sin or transgression or failure to live up to the laws that we know to be true. When we do that, we have lost, to one degree or another, our honor, and correspondingly we have lost a certain amount of power. Having honor is equated with power in the Scriptures, and I believe that to be true. You will be recognized as someone of honor, and that will give you the power to persuade others if you do what's right. If you do evil, then you will have a correspondingly serious loss of power and loss of ability to persuade others at least to do good. And so this whole concept of truth, righteousness, faith, salvation, doing what the gospel says for all the right reasons, Brand, as you point out, really does carry with it a protection and a real power that can assist us in our life. And this battle imagery that we have is something that as adults we probably take more seriously than our children. I remember teaching a youth class a few years ago, and God, isn't it really tough to live in high school today and with all the things going on around you? And they kind of look at each other and go, you know, I mean, it's the way it is for them. They haven't seen the contrast over time and the dramatic changes, and they don't see the urgency and the huge temptations and the problems often that can be there if you succumb to some of these things. And so this lesson, I think, takes on a sense of urgency that perhaps many of the youth don't see, but which we as adults hope that they will see. Craig, anything to add at this point from you?
No, I just I really appreciated Branson, your comments there. I think you're right, and about the fact that, well, one thing, jumping to what you said, Martin, is I don't think that many people realize today what they're really up against. And Brant, I thought that the discussion about the fact that there must needs be opposition in all things, and if not, that is when we have our choice taken away from us. That is when we have our power taken away from us, because we are not learning and growing from that. That's actually one of my favorite chapters in the Book of Mormon. I'm not much of a scriptorian, but I absolutely love that chapter for the message that it gives. And I think that wisdom comes with age, because I think if someone had asked me back when I was a youth about the temptations and the different things going on, I probably would have gone, oh, yeah, also, you know. So I think that that a little bit of wisdom does come with age as we recognize these things.
Well, two things, I guess. One of them, because we're talking about the armor of God, we're talking about protecting ourselves from some of these influences. But those influences are going to be there, and I think that the concept of the opposition is important to understand how that helps us. And just as a real simple example, if you have a desire to increase the muscles of your bicep, you can pick up a piece of paper multiple times, and your bicep will be working. Won't do a lot for it. I know, I've tried. Hasn't done much for me. Yeah, typing doesn't seem to build my biceps either. I don't. But there's probably some books I've got that might help. But you get a bigger weight, and pushing against that weight, using the opposition, you can strengthen the muscle. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we give in to any of the things that are around us, but that we're vigilant and that we're able, because we resist, to be able to build our spiritual muscles so that we are stronger. Having said that, I think it's also extremely important to recognize that Christ came as a redeemer, not as a protector against any kind of opposition. Christ was all for the opposition. He knew that we were going to succumb to the opposition. Christ came as a redeemer, so that when we made mistakes, we had a way out, that there was a way to become clean again. And so we get the best of both of those propositions. We get opposition that allows us to strengthen spiritual muscles. We have a redeemer that allows us to cleanse ourselves of the pain that we've gone through and the damage that might be caused by some of the choices that we make, so that we can start over and still progress and do better. And both of those things are important, the opposition and the fact that we have a Redeemer to save us from the times when the opposition gets us down.
Brant, you're mentioning that reminded me that I have a cousin who loves collecting swords, daggers, shields, you name it. And he actually has an incredible collection. But he has Roman shield, Roman helmet, Roman sword, which there's another name for it, but I can't remember.
Gladius.
Thank you. That's it. He goes around to some of the mutual groups or whatever, and he'll talk to them about the imagery of putting on the whole armor of God. And what he does is he talks about the fact, and he'll put it on, and then he'll let some of the young men and young women try the shield and everything. But what he'll do is he'll show how they would stand in formation. And you're talking about pushing back from the evils. He reminded me we were there for dinner at his house one time, and he was showing me the whole thing, and he talked about the training methods of the Roman soldiers, and you know, he'll bring that up to the youth also, so that they have an understanding that the imagery that we have in the New Testament was with the Roman soldier in mind, because that was what was familiar, so he talks about that, and the training of that, what they had to go through to learn to literally push back from the enemy when the enemy would attack, and you know, where to hold the shield, how to have the helmet, how to, etc., and so forth, and in many ways, I think we can equate that to what we're doing. We have these different things to help us, and you know, a prime example is the recent General Conference, and we listen to the prophets, we listen to these leaders give us lessons and talk with us, and we can take that into our lives, and as we listen to and follow what is taught to us, in many ways that's what we're doing. Is we're building ourselves up to be able to push back from what is going to be hitting us from the opposition.
There's one thing that you said that I'd like to really highlight, and that is that it isn't just the armor of the one, it's the fact that they stand together in line, and
exactly.
that they keep shields, and that they work together. And I think there's actually something there that we can remember. There will be times when we will be alone and solitary, and the attacks on us are going to rely on our own armor. There will be other times, however, when we can stand with others who are like us, and our faith can shield them, and their faith can shield us. And standing together, we will be stronger than we would be if we were individuals.
If it's okay with you, I'll just for a moment get off of. I'll come ahead 1,000+ years. My specialty is more 19th century history, but I remember one time having a conversation. There were several of us, and they were talking about. They thought it was crazy in the Civil War, the Revolutionary War before that, etc., how these men would march side by side. I mean, touching each other. They would march, and then they would, the front line would kneel. The second line behind them would aim the rifles or muskets, above them, and they would just stand there, ready to fire. And I remember a couple of people saying, "That's crazy. Why didn't they hide behind trees and everything?" And I remember we were talking. We said, well, there were battles where they did do that, but there were other battles where it had a greater impact to stand that way. And they were saying, I don't get it. And we sat down to watch a movie about the Civil War, and it showed them that scene where they're marching together and they're kneeling and everything, and there's cavalry charging toward them, and they fired at once, and it was devastating. And they turned to me and they go, "Oh, I get it now," and that's exactly like you said. Yes, there are times, many times, when we fight this battle alone, but never quite alone, because we have the Holy Ghost with us. If hopefully we're leading a good enough life to be in that position. But there are other times, like you said, when we can stand together as fellow members in the gospel, and it is like having someone on your right and someone on your left who are protecting your flank.
A couple of quick thoughts here, picking up on some of the ideas that you both expressed. I have heard several people over the years chastigate Christianity, or say, I can't believe it, for the same reasons that have been brought up earlier, and that is God couldn't possibly be merciful. What merciful God would just destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? Not just the bad adults, but the little kids. What kind of a merciful God would send the Israelites into Jericho and order them to kill every man, woman, and child? What kind of a God would do that? Why would a merciful God flood the earth and kill all the people, even the little infants? Why? How can that be a loving God? And I think the real answer is stated very beautifully by Brandt earlier. For the purposes of life to be present, we have to have the ability to choose between good and evil. And when things deteriorate to the point, as they apparently did in Sodom and Gomorrah, where it was a compound in one, what did you have to choose from? Evil. What was the other choice? Evil. There is no point anymore to that existence, and those who would grow up in that kind of a society would certainly not be helped in any way by it, and the most merciful thing to do would be to destroy the whole city, so that that kind of a horrific lifestyle would not continue. And similar arguments could be made about the purposes for the flood and for the destruction of Jericho, and most of the other similar instances that are found in the Old Testament. There are numerous Jewish commentaries that describe it in that very way. They don't describe compound in one, as Brandt certainly did from the Book of Mormon so well, but they have that concept that there must be good to choose from. And we're told that in these last days, evil will increase, but we have to, in the face of that evil, put on the whole armor of God and offer an alternative for our children. We can't remove them or us from evil, but we can certainly offer the good alternative. One of the things that I was reading recently is the book of Jude and 1st and 2nd Peter, and in those they talk a great deal about the importance of leading a good Christian life, because it is an example for those outside the Christian faith. What's the best reasoning or rationale, according to Peter, for being a good Christian? Well, in addition to what it does for us, it's a good example to others, so they'll want to come and be like us. And we can do that if we are true, are righteous, have faith, work towards salvation, believe in the prophets. Those kinds of concepts that we have in this lesson today about the armor of God. Any other thoughts here, gentlemen? Craig, Brandt?
Not for me.
Nope. It's been a fun discussion.
It has been a fun discussion. It's one that has just a few scriptures in it, but they're very important ones, and the whole concept is quite important. Well, for those of you who are listening today, we appreciate your tuning in to the Interpreter Roundtable. We hope that you will join more of these in the future. The roundtable discussions have been done by the Interpreter Foundation for all of the Gospel Doctrine lessons, and will be done for those into the foreseeable future. We also enjoy your participation and invite you to participate on our website to look at our scholarly publications and look at the other roundtables that have happened. Go to MormonInterpreter.com, and thank you for joining us.